until we are a superpower and until people respect us and until we respect ourselves.
The greatest thing any oppressor of the world, any terrorist of the world fears is Africans coming together.
So we have to take some responsibility to say, you know what? As Black people, we need to step up.
This is Alavanyo. There have been and still remain numerous shootings of Africans in America by police officers in broad daylight, but our local media is not saying much about it. It's not an African problem, right? It's an American problem, isn't it? Well, this is Kofi Edu-Bempong, a Ghanaian who was working on his PhD at Florida University, being shot in the face and chest for being Black. He was not a crack dealer, an armed robber, or a drunk. He was a respectable member of society.
Out on campus harassing students and shooting students and tasing them and making them feel like they're not here to protect us, but they're here to kill us. That's right.
We cannot allow them to fade into our collective memories. We cannot allow for cases like this to happen again. We will fight against this injustice until justice is served.
They were hiding everywhere. Like, first of all, I thought it's going to be a gang war or something. There's something very big going on. And one of the guys said me, go in your apartment, don't come out. 4 or 5 guys were hiding. Okay? And they were like in a position to fire anytime.
5 of these guys on this one guy who can't even really walk right, break down his door, and then enter his apartment forcibly, shoot him 3 times with a beanbag gun, and then once with a taser, and then twice with an M4 assault. And this is over a matter of about 7 seconds. They just decide to go from non-lethal force to lethal force, and they blow off about half his face. He tries to shield himself. They destroy his enemies. It's a horrific situation.
What should the story of Kofi Edu-Bempong mean to Africans?
In the case of Kofi Bempong, here you have a PhD student who was shot in the chest, shot in the face. And, you know, you don't hear about this in media houses in Ghana. People aren't talking about this. You had another case of a continental African, Amadou Diallo out of Guinea, who was shot some 41 times in New York. You have in Germany, Yuri Diallo, also a continental African, also out of Guinea. In Germany, they arrested him, handcuffed him, bound his hands and his feet. Then they lit his body on fire. They burned him alive. They could hear on the recording his screaming as he was being literally burned alive. You have Julian Cole, you know, in the UK, who was beaten to the point that it severed his spine. That you have all of these cases right now in India. You have African students who are marching in protest because every other day they are being mobbed and attacked. You had a man out of Congo who was killed in broad daylight, Olivier. So right there in broad daylight, he was beaten to death right there in India. And what this comes to is that, you know, no African will be respected anywhere in the world until Africa becomes a superpower, until people see you and don't just see an individual, but they see, oh, if I do something to you, then there's going to be some repercussions. There's going to be some punishment for that. Right now, if you do something to Black people in Libya, if you do something to Black people in the US, if you do something to Black people anywhere, there's no repercussions.
when Africans come together, all the nonsense we are seeing will come to an end. So there is a definite attempt to divide the ranks of Africans. And a lot of Africans have fallen to that, and that has made us weak.
2016, you had this African in the Congo and India who was killed, beaten in broad daylight. You have these black people who are being shot. And this is something that was talked about back in the 60s. Malcolm X came to the OAU, and he talked about delegates coming from Uganda who are beaten. They were mistaken as just everyday black people, so they were beaten by the police. He talked about another ambassador who was beaten by the police. You had Guedema who went to the U.S. and said, we don't serve black people. So what we're seeing is that, you know, we feel a bit distant from it because we happen to be on the continent. But what we found is anytime we travel, this is what happens to us. And sometimes it comes to us in the form of guns and weapons and drugs and all these things that are filtered in. If you look at the war in Liberia, Sierra Leone, that the major funder of that were the diamond cartels, De Beers. If you look at Eastern Congo, the major funders of those were companies like Halliburton, because they want to get coltan. All of your cell phones, all of your everything else is running based on coltan. So anytime you see conflicts among black people, you have to think about who benefits from those conflicts. Just follow the money trail, then we'll start to understand what's going on. So it's not a thing of as long as we're in Africa, we're safe. No, we're not until we are a superpower and until people respect us and until we respect ourselves. If someone can bring a statue of a racist like Gandhi who said we're 1 degree removed from an animal and we allow that statue to be there, we're saying we have no self-respect. We are a rug, just walk on us. And then when we go somewhere and then we're killed and we're shot and we're stabbed and we're beaten, we shouldn't say anything because we've already said that we're worthless. So we have to take some responsibility to say, you know what? As black people, we need to step up. No one can sit on you or stand on your back unless you are laying prostrate. Once you stand up, now that is no longer an option.
Curtailing the blame game.
I've talked to a lot of African Americans who at first did not even know that the slave trade was started by the Arabs crossing the Sahara and then invading our school systems and our shrines and this. And they just put it in this simplistic mood like, oh, you people sold us into slavery. You people sold us into slavery. And instead of looking at the real culprits, they rather have a bad mind against their own brothers and sisters in Africa now. So the true story must be told, because what started has still not ended. A typical example is the Kofi Brempong story, and nothing is being said about it. This should be a serious media story to be flashing almost every time for people to know the devilish mind of the people we call friends and saviors.
The unending desire to search for greener pastures anywhere other than in Africa.
Today, a lot of people call traveling to America or Europe greener pastures. I don't see anywhere where the pastures are greener than Africa. Why are they calling it greener pastures? Because we have been made to believe that it is only by enslaving ourselves to our oppressors. Why are they calling it greener pastures? Because
understanding modern day slavery.
Slavery has never ended in America. I'll say that again. Slavery has never ended in America. That according to the 13th Amendment, it says that slavery nor involuntary servitude shall exist within these United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction except as punishment of a crime. So this means all they have to do is say that you are a criminal. Now they can re-enslave you. And this is immediately what they did. This is why they put that caveat in the 13th Amendment, because as soon as that was done, they said, you know what? There's a crime wave. We need to just go arrest all these black people and have them pick our cotton for free, have them lay railroad tracks for free, have them build these buildings. So if you want to know how America got built up to the place where it is, The Capitol building of the U.S. was built by the labor of enslaved Africans. The White House itself was built by the labor of enslaved Africans. If you have a computer like a Dell or an HP or a Compaq, or if you fly on Boeing Airlines, all of these companies are invested in the privatized prison industrial complex. And what they do is they have black people, African people, black people who are working for free in all these places. So again, what they say is that as long as you're there, they can shoot you, because who will raise any fuss? We don't have nuclear weapons here, so they don't have to worry about getting bombed. And it's really something that it makes us have to put it all in perspective, because if it can happen to our brothers and sisters, our black brothers and sisters there, it can happen to us there, it can happen to us here.
Modern Arab slavery in Africa.
Africa can do it. That idea of we can't do it is not true. We are the largest race on earth. Africans can be found on almost every continent. If we are to trace our origins, we'll find Africans in India, in Europe, even in America before the slave trade, there were black people. In Australia, everywhere. Now, if we are to have a school system that trains our children to have self-respect and to know that Africans everywhere are brothers and sisters, and we are to feel like that and act like that, Africa will be the only superpower in the world. A lot of our people are being killed all around the world. Special reference to the case in Libya. We are seeing it like black on black crime. Even Africans are being deceived to believe it is black on black crime. It isn't. Because originally, the people who claim to be Libyans are Arabs. They have enslaved our people before, and that blood and belief of superiority and wickedness is still in them, and that is what they are doing. Is it a crime to have a black skin? No, it isn't. Is it something that is being taught in schools that black people should be murdered? It isn't. It is a feeling that has been handed down through the ages. It is still in their DNA feeling that Africans are inferior, so they do evil things to them. And it is being done now. The only way to halt it is for we, the real black people of the earth, to come together and find our own emancipation.
Is there a strategic and systematic plan to wipe out Africans?
If we look at the statistics, from 2002 around 2007, 2008, you have around 3,000 to 4,000 black people who were killed. If you look from the 1800s to the 1960s, you have about, again, 3,000 to 4,000 black people who were lynched, hung from trees. Now, again, I want you to look at another way that these whites are killing black people. There's one thing called Planned Parenthood. There's another thing called Marie Stopes International. And these were founded by Margaret Louise Sanger and also Marie Stopes, as the name tells you. And they were eugenicists. They said that they don't want the word to get out that all of these things about family planning were really because they wanted to exterminate the Negro population. They said they can use pastors if any of the more rebellious black people ever get a hint that that's what they're actually here to do. And what they've done is that even in the United States alone, since 1973, over 19 million black babies have been aborted. And they always have these Planned Parenthood centers, these abortion clinics in black neighborhoods. So they don't do it in the white neighborhoods, in the poor white neighborhoods, whatever. They're targeting specifically black people because they said lynching isn't fast enough. Even the police shootings, they aren't fast enough. What they are trying to do is get into black people's heads that, you know what, we can do this for free. We can even sponsor you. We can fund you if you want to kill a black child. We even give you funding. But look up the quotes of Margaret Louise Sanger and Marie Stopes as the two leading people who are behind the extermination of black people. What this means is that in the course of 4 days, they've killed more black children than could have been killed through from 2000, all of the police brutality, police shootings. This means that every 4 days they kill more black children, more black babies than were killed throughout the entire history of lynching. Even if we say, well, those figures of 4,000, it seems small, let's triple them. This just means that in 8 or 12 days, you have this exact same thing. So we have to be very cognizant of the many ways that are used to kill black people.
Is repatriation necessary for Africans in the diaspora and those on the continent?
In order to achieve this great superpower concept, Africans in the diaspora need to repatriate back to the continent. And those who have other countries as their homes should also collaborate with the people over there and come together, because a lot of those people who were called Red Indians and Mojibs were originally Africans. And whatever land they hold in America are their true land. If we are to talk about people who have migrated, there is the Europeans.
So oftentimes, if we think about repatriation, the first thing that people think of is, oh, well, then it will be a situation like Liberia, because the people will come and then there will be conflicts and things of that nature. However, we have to put it in perspective, because there are conflicts where there are no African Americans, so-called, or any British who are repatriated from Nova Scotia or anywhere. So you can look at it like the Hutus and the Tutsis in Rwanda, that there were no African Americans there. You can look at the Central African Republic. There's a guy called Mad Dog who they're accusing of cannibalism, with the Muslims versus the Christians killing each other in the street. You can look at South Africa, where just a year or two ago, you had them killing any continental Africans, especially Nigerians or anyone in the street who they could find who wasn't from South Africa. And what all of these have in common can actually be understood. There's a book by a psychologist where it's called Black on Black Violence. The name of the book is Black on Black Violence.
So our people really need to repatriate to their roots, wherever it is, and do everything possible to protect it. Today, a lot of our brothers and sisters who are to repatriate to Ghana and other African countries do not necessarily have to come with huge amounts of cash. They have technology. So why don't they come on board, so that instead of African countries going to sign unnecessary agreements with other people who will bring them economic woes. A very typical example is the Chinese brings you a loan and they tell you there are companies who have to come and execute it. Then they come with even laborers from China, causing unemployment in your labor front.
Black self-annihilation in service of white domination. What this means is when you have black people fighting against each other, you have to start to think who benefits from that. Because in the case of Sierra Leone and Liberia, the ones who stood to benefit from that were the diamond cartels. This is where you get all the talks about blood diamonds and things of that nature. So you had De Beers, you had all these diamond cartels. Because one thing you have to understand is that these people are coming up with bazookas and jeeps and tanks and all types of equipment. They're in the bush of Liberia. Now, where is the machine gun factory in the bush of Liberia? So you have to start to ask yourself, well, where are they getting these machine guns from? They aren't manufacturing themselves. Who is funneling them in? And oftentimes, just like during the enslavement trade, they would say, you know what, we'll give you these guns on credit. Take these guns and then just bring me enslaved Africans. Now we say, okay, we'll give you these guns on credit to this rebel group. Now all you have to do is bring us these blood diamonds, bring us blood coltan, bring us blood timber, all of these things. So what they're doing is that they're using all of these conflicts as a way to get the resources out of Africa without having to pay for it. So again, we shouldn't just look at it as, oh, well, in Liberia, this is what happened, so forth and so on. You have to look at it in the context of all of these conflicts and how they serve the interests of someone outside of us as black people. That's why those conflicts got started, and that's why they were perpetuated.
if our own people are to repatriate with the technology we have, there will be nothing like somebody bringing a technology to come and mine your gold. And he gives you 8% and he takes 92% because he brought the technology. You really need to repatriate.
If Africans are brutally beaten while only visiting in America, imagine the physical and psychological suffering our brothers and sisters who have lived there for over 300 years have had to deal with. Until Africa becomes a superpower that can have African peoples back throughout the world, this menace is far from ending.
Hello, Love Bla Xit Family. That was a very interesting video, wasn't it? Well, there's a lot to think about. Anyway, anyone has anything to say? Anyone wanna come up and talk on the live feed? Anyway. Hello, brother. What is it? How you doing?
Good, how you doing?
I'm good, man. How you find the video?
Video was very, very inspiring, very interesting. What I wanted to comment on the correlation that the brother made between the slave trade, the way guns were handed out, and also the conflict that happened in my country, Liberia. So for example, we had the not only was there diamond, timber, all of these things, we had all kinds of insanely crazy weapons of mass destructions that were brought to the country, and the conflicts that we had, which by the way were inspired by foreign intervention and interference. So it's like the enemy, as far as African liberation and struggle, they haven't come up with any new concepts in over 400 years. They use the same exact strategies over and over and over again. Even in the United States, when you talk about human rights and civil rights, every time somebody stands up, they go in to find another black person and stick a mic in their face to say something completely opposite of what the ongoing struggle is about. So I think once you understand the history of slavery, you'll understand exactly what's happening in present day. So that's one comment that I wanted to throw in there.
So that's what they've been doing. That's what they've been doing for centuries, just divide and conquer.
Correct. What I want to also add is this: when we talk about African liberation, when we talk about African unity, we have to move it from nostalgia and feel good and get into the economics of it. Because if we want to make Africa a superpower, then Africans have to be able to control. Number one, we need to be able to control how we eat. Okay, we can't feed ourselves if then we can't even think about being a superpower. So we need Africans as well as Africans in the diaspora to think about what your talents are and what contribution are you going to make to the modern processing and development of the African continent. And that's the way that we have to start thinking. We can't think in terms of, if I go to Africa, what kind of job am I going to do? Like, for lack of a better saying, it's not about what Africa can do for you. What can you really do for Africa? Where will your talents be used towards the development of Africa? And I want to also encourage people to look beyond, other African, like, look at the entire continent. Don't just look at Ghana and Gambia. Consider, Liberia as well. I'm from Liberia, so I'm obviously biased. But, I think Liberia represents an opportunity for people in the diaspora to gain a toehold on the continent as well.
Because as my sister says, Africa is a place of many rooms, many different places.
Mm-hmm.
So in place, there's places like Gambia, far space, there's places like South Africa and other places.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I personally, I'm working my way up. I have projects in Liberia, agriculture project, is still in the embryonic stages. But so for example, we're developing palm oil, we're developing rice, we're also doing other vegetables. So while I have one foot in America, I have another foot firmly planted on the continent as I prepare for my contribution. My contribution is towards food production, mechanized food production. There's no reason why we eat rice and then we import 90% of the rice that we eat. Okay, so when you think about it, the hypocrisy of that, our people was enslaved based on our skills to grow rice. We were enslaved in South Carolina, we were enslaved in Georgia during the time of the transatlantic slave trade. Liberia, what's now known as Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea, were called the Rice Coast, because if they capture somebody from that area, there was a high likelihood that they had skills to grow rice. And in the process, South Carolina became the richest colony in the United States. So today, the script has completely flipped. What they did is they brought rubber and said, we told our people to start growing rubber and forget about rice, and we started importing rice. So my grandparents were one of the last generations of rice farmers in Liberia, like serious rice farmers, people who actually grew rice, enough to eat, some to sell, to put their children through school. But we were tricked to think that rubber is the way to go. And that's a common thing throughout the entire continent, where our resources that we use for food production was turned around and turned into other cash crops that support the European system, whether it's sugarcane, whether it's cocoa, whether it's tea, all these things that we became a reservoir of producing things for the mother country, and then they imported food to us. So today we're dependent on imported food. We get most of our food from the port, okay? But yet we have optimal conditions to grow our own food. So this is my message to everybody: is seriously consider food production, consider agriculture as an venture in Africa.
Mm-hmm. So are you gonna move back to Liberia?
Eventually, yes. I'm paving the way. Definitely paving the way. Because the thing is, here's the thing: the mistake that you can't make, pack up your things and move, and then go there for 2 years, fail, and then pack up your things and come back. So you have to have a real serious plan. Wherever you are, there's nothing wrong with being an international player that's back and forth. So long as you have a sustainable business you can free yourself from the system. And that's where we're getting to. That's the challenge of getting to a point that we're sustainable. See? So, but I'm here to promote Africa, and specifically, I want to put Liberia, West Africa on the map of people who are considering, doing business in Africa. And Liberia is one of the few countries that I'm aware of that to become a citizen, you have to be Black. Liberia is one of the only countries that I know of that if you want to own land, you have to be Black. We don't have a land conflict in Liberia where we have to worry about the settlers. We're not a country that has to pay reparations to white farmers for land that they stole from us. We've had our issues. Sure, we've had issues, with the settlers rule, but the settlers themselves were conscious enough to know that, hey, land is important, right? So to put that in the Constitution that you must be a Black person to own land, you must be Black to become a citizen, because that's the way to protect us. The lands are owned by the people. Okay, so if you want to do agriculture, you go and you talk to the people and you can get land to do development on. You can't do that in some other places because the system of white supremacy is still in place.
Mm-hmm.
So those are just points that I want to throw in there.
Yeah. My sister's about to join us. Hello.
Okay.
Hey.
Hello there.
You.
How are you?
Yeah, I was listening. I'm sorry that I didn't come on live stream. I've
been following you from day one. I've been following you from day one. With the first video that you made with Watermeyer, I was following that. I saw it. So I've been following you since. So I appreciate the work that you're doing. Yes. So
thank you so much.
Yes. So I was just explaining a few things. I'm promoting Liberia.
I'm listening. I wasn't watching, but I was listening and I was hearing, because I just have to. We have a meeting on Sundays called CODE, which is the Council of African Descendants here, which is something that we're setting up a framework so that when people return, structure in place to support them. So there's about 40 of us. There's a lot of us, and we meet on Sundays. Okay. So I was kind of preparing for that meeting because we're also working on automatic citizenship. So, we're a body that's responsible for communicating with the legislature, with the politicians, with the National Assembly, and of course, ultimately, with the president of Gambia. So we were working on that, and I had a bout of sickness, so I did live. So on Friday I did Rhoda Maya, but I still wasn't feeling 100%, and now I'm feeling a lot better. So I just want to say thank you for all your well wishes. I feel a lot better. I'm back. I food poisoned myself. Oh no! I cooked some. I know, right? Only Juliet could do that. Yeah, I poisoned myself. And so, it hit me hard because at first I thought it was like an allergy thing. So I thought it was just an allergy to prawns, but I didn't realize that, can you come to turn it off, please? I didn't realize that underlying everything was food poisoning. So I continued to poison myself. So I started to get septicemia. But luckily enough for me, the doctors here are phenomenal. So they gave me great medication, and I took my herbs. I believe in my herbs, 100% my herbs. So I went to my herbalist and got my herbs, and I'm on time. I lost some weight though, so there's always a positive, But I want to say thank you for being the channel, and thank you for watching. And for anyone else who wants to jump in, I'll be here for about 30 minutes before I have to go. So if you want to touch base with us, but I really want to talk about what you were talking about, rice. That's what really brought me out of the bedroom with Cafe.
Oh yeah, okay. So look,
is you know, the main thing.
Rice is critical. It's critical. It's something. I think that's the #1 crop for us in West Africa. You know, it's from Senegal, Guinea, Liberia, Ivory Coast. We're the rice eaters. You know, and we get all of it, 90% of it from the port these days. So those are the things that we're trying to focus on. For us, we've done a 10-acre pilot project where we're doing it for seed multiplication. So we want to go and explore. So the unique situation here is rice grows well in the lowlands, and I'm only familiar with Liberia, but 1/5 of the landmass of Liberia is lowland swamp. It's well drained, so we can, you know, there's optimal growing conditions. So I come from a people that were rice farmers, the original rice farmers. You know, I've done my DNA. I'm a Liberian, but it turns out that because of my DNA, about 900 African Americans on 23andMe are genetically related to me. So it says that some of so my ancestors, some of them were captured and brought to America to grow rice. You see, and that is the effect of the transatlantic slave trade. You know, so
Gula, right? Like the Gula people.
Yeah, well, the Golas they're closely related to us. I'm from Liberia, so we have the same culture. Like the Mende group, we're one of the Mende tribes. Okay, the Mende groups. So we speak Mende related language. I'm from the Mono tribe. You know, if you know the Mono River Union, right? So that's my tribe. Okay, so we're closely related. You know, my wife, who happens to be Jamaican, you know, her DNA says she's 53% Igbo. Okay, but she's also about 10% Latino. Yes. So we're all really interrelated. Okay. But whatever we do, I don't want to take up all the time. I'm gonna chime off, but I just want to encourage everybody to think in terms of agriculture, think in terms of development, what you want to do to contribute to the development of making Africa a superpower. So you have to think that big. You have to think on that level, okay? Not on the level of, okay, well, I want to get one plot of land and build a house. It's wonderful, but what are you going to do to make Africa a superpower? Okay, so I really admire the work that you're doing. So I'm going to chime off and watch the rest of the video, unless you have any other questions.
I just wanted to say that in encouraging others to come back, because like I said, Africa is, you know, a mansion for me of many rooms, all beautiful, different, diverse rooms. Just choose one and come home, you know, choose one. Because I had a conversation recently, and you can tell me I'm wrong. I don't mind, because, you know, I'm not always right. A lot of the time I'm not right, but on some things I am. And I had a conversation with someone, and I got a bit upset because, you know, I asked the person, they were having a conversation about Africa, and they were asking me, you know, a lot of questions, and I was answering those questions because I have conversations. And during one of those conversations, you know, they were saying to me, oh, they wanted to, you know, come and see Africa to see if it was safe. And then, and they were coming to Gambia. And so I said to them, have you ever been to Europe? You know, they said, yeah, I've been to Paris. I've been to, I think the other place was Spain. And I think the other place was Scotland, actually. So I said, did you go there and check it out first before you left? You know, did you go to Paris and check out, you know, to see if it was safe? There's a lot of, I think, nation that goes on about Africa, and part of what I'm doing is to unpack the myths about, you know, why would you feel unsafe?
Right.
You know, this is a big question. Why would you feel safer in a racist country that is racist against you? They don't even want you there unless you're a tourist and they want your pounds. Why would you feel safer in a country, you know, in which they are, you know, killing you? I mean, you're in America where they're lynching Africans.
Right.
You know, I got a phone call yesterday from a distraught dad, Camilla's dad, you know, and Camilla's dad was telling me about an African American, and I just call them Africans born in America, to be fair, because they ain't no such called African European. Yeah. So an African that was born in America, and she was lynched, and he was distraught, telling me this yesterday. And I'm thinking, hang on a minute, you're coming from a place where it's open season on the black man, open season on the black woman.
Correct.
And you want to tell me you come into Africa and you're wondering if it's safe. What? Safe from what? You know, in order to make Africa power, we have to realize what Africa is.
Exactly. And see, look,
Africa is.
I'm you know, I immigrated to the United States when I was a child, so I have, I guess you could say, African American sensibilities, in the sense that when I go to Africa, people assume I'm African American. So until they hear me speak my own language, but the feeling that I have before they know I'm even African is love. Is they, you know, the people are friendly. They want to talk to you. I was in Ghana, same thing. Very, very accommodating and welcoming. So if you're coming from the diaspora, you don't have to worry about any issues from an African. Like, there's no hostility. There's only love and brotherhood. And I've experienced it, you know, almost camouflage as somebody from the diaspora, based on the way that I speak and based on the fact of growing up in this country. So I know that by my wide margins, Africans are very, very welcoming to their brothers and sisters from the diaspora, regardless of what country you go to. That I can say.
Yes, it's true. It's true. It's true. Okay, we have Winter Bell who's going to join us. So I'd like to invite her to the stream. How you feeling, Winter Bell? How you feeling? How's life? Where are you?
I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, in America.
Welcome.
And I'm an art student, and I really want to like move to Africa after I graduate, because I really do feel like America is not the place for me. Definitely as a Black artist and a female artist. So I have a lot of margins I have to fight to be a successful painter. And I was like wondering, I don't know if you know much about the art scene in like Africa, because I know there's some stuff going on in Ghana, but I kind of want to know about like Africa as a painter, because not a lot of people talk about like the visual art scene and how important painting is, because like as a culture, it all started with art. Art was one of the first ways we learned by drawing, and it all just developed from there. So I feel like as a painter, this is something that we need to have more of, painters in the diaspora, just like growing. And I kind of like, I don't want to like whitewash my art so it'll sell in America when I could just come over there and sell it to people who actually appreciate it.
Wow, that is so super cool. Listen, I've got a great story to share with you. Yeah. On Monday, I was feeling awful. I'm not gonna lie, and but I had to work because, like, regardless, you know, I pushed through things. So I had an interview to do, and at the same time, I had meetings that I had to undertake. I had to go to the Foreign Affairs Ministry, and I had a meeting with Ambassador Jar. I think it's Abubakar Jar, who's a Diaspora ambassador. And I also met with the permanent secretary for the foreign minister as well. So anyway, although I was feeling like crap, I still went. Anyway, after the meeting, I stopped to get some lunch in between, having to do 2 interviews for another platform called iGambia for Martin with Isa2 Bookham, who has their own channel. Anyway, in between that, I stopped at King's Bakery Cafe because I wanted a bite to eat because I wasn't feeling too well. And while I was there, I bumped into an artist. This is, I'm coming full circle, but yeah, you know, I'm unpacking this. And her name was Puma. And she's phenomenal. She is phenomenal. And I just want to share this story with you, just so that you know. She left Amsterdam, yeah? And she just decided to leave, just had enough. Just had enough of the racism. You're going to see her story on the channel because she's an amazing woman. And I just want to share this with you to inspire you. So she left with 2 suitcases. She left their house, she left everything behind, and she was actually heading towards Senegal. But because the air flight was so expensive to Senegal, she was advised, you know, it's cheaper to go through Gambia. So that's how she ended up in Gambia. Anyway, to make her way here, she started to paint walls. She's an artist. So by painting walls, she made enough money to make her way to the Gambia. She was paid for her art. So she made her way to the Gambia. And as soon as she arrived here, she described it as a magnet, just being push, and then like a key turning and realizing that this is actually where she was destined to be. Now, I just want to share her story just to inspire you. Yeah. So one of the other things that she realized was all the creatives here, all of the artists here, and she, you know, dived head on into the artist culture here. And she started a project. It's an amazing project. That's why I want to share it with you. And she started to look at all of the creative arts here, including weaving. I'm going to just focus in on weaving for now because it's an area that people have never really looked at in terms of using it as an art form. And so she carried on painting. She carried on doing her artwork. She carried on, you know, using her painting to create clothing, to create postcards, to create pictures, etc., etc. And while she was doing that, she recreated weaving, and she made things out of weaving. One of the things that she made, she became a mariner or milliner, as you might say. Milliner, I think is the right word, for someone who makes hats. And she, quiet, please, outside, because his voice really carries. And so she became a milliner, making hats, fusing weaved sweetgrass, etc. Anyway, she ended up making hats for an. She ended up making hats for an artist called Erykah Badu. Now, I don't know if you know Erykah Badu because she's probably my generation. I don't know if anyone else knows Erykah Badu. If you do, put a comment in the notes. Yeah. And Erykah Badu recently streamed during the COVID-19 lockdown. And she was actually wearing one of Puma's hats, which was actually created here in the Gambia. So she created the online business, and I'm really proud of her. She's also working on a beach bar, an ITEL food beach bar, and she's also got a soil project and a seed project. So there's so much you can do while still doing her art. So if she can come here with 2 suitcases, hardly any money, and survive and create great business out of her art, so can you. So can you. She said to me, she don't even know what happened to her place. She just left. Her spirit took her and said she's got to get out, and she left and she just packed her stuff and came to Africa. And her story is remarkable. So I'm going to be interviewing her this week and sharing her story with you, because I think what she's accomplished is quite phenomenal. And when you're able just to be brave enough just to pick up and say, I'm going to cope, I'm going to survive regardless, I think that is quite amazing, because my story is very different to that. My story was very planned. Our whole exodus and, you know, our repatriation was, I knew it from the first time I came to Africa. I knew that I was going to be living in Africa because there's no other place that I could live and have the quality of life and the happiness and freedom that I'm experiencing on a day-to-day basis. So that's the reason why it was so crucial, you know. And if anyone else wants to jump in the stream, we're putting it on the screen. I should have put it in the community group, but unfortunately, like I said, I've been incredibly busy because I've got a lot of catching up to do. And I also want to send out a shout to everybody that purchased their land in Casa Conda. Most of you, I've got the land papers for. A few of you left behind, so I will be getting them this week. But I have got them, and I will be sharing with you online. But to talk about Africa being a superpower, I want to talk to you about something that I've seen, and it's an image that was like projected to me. And I'm not, unfortunately, an artist like yourself. I don't have your wonderful skills. And that is your gift, you know, that is your special gift. But I had an image in mind, and I would love for someone to paint it. And it was an image that was given to me like by the ancestors, I guess. Yeah. And it was an image of like a road, like a sandy road, but like golden sandy road. And there was loads of us like leaving from the west, all going down this road. And this road, there was ancestors, and they were holding each other arm by arm, like gripping each other's arms. And it was like every single tribe, every single ancestors, including our enslaved ancestors, were all holding this crowd back of white people, you know, who almost looked like demons, like devils, like they were trying to claw at us. And the ancestors were holding arm by arm, all different clothing, all different tribes, men and women. And we were walking down the middle, you know, and we were all walking down the middle. And I had this vision, and it held strong with me. And that's why I know that ancestors are opening up the path for us to come home. So don't worry, you know. Make your plans, because you will land here and you will find yourself, you'll find your way as an artist, because here I think art is more appreciated, and I think it's more valued culturally. And so, you know, finish doing your degree, finish doing what you're doing, because you can even come here and teach art, you know, share your skills. What are your thoughts? Because I've talked a lot. You know, come and make Africa a superpower. I've got a crack in it, a superpower. You know, Africa can be a superpower because all it takes is art.
I feel like, like in America, a lot of the problem is like this negative image of Africa. But I'm like, we okay with living in these ghettos, but we're not okay to be in a place where we're free. We're okay to be like surrounded by all of this white supremacy, all of this oppression. We can barely pay your bill. They feeding off of our wealth. They feeding off the cotton we picked, yet still want to hang on. They feeding us in education, like only like basically talks about European instead of all the greatness that Black people have done through the world. They don't talk about none of the empires. They love to talk about the Roman Empire, but they never talk about how the Kush Kingdom defeated them twice. And like, it's so many things that if us as Black people would know, we would just like understand that this is not the place for us. And even with all of these police killings, and they've been starting to lynch people, but we still just want to sit here and just keep feeding these people. Like one out of 4 people, Black people in America, go to prison, but prison they make $2 trillion a year from the prison system. And this mainly Black people in there. It's just slavery. It's continued slavery. But yet we still go and get fed into this stuff. Like even with school, the prison, the school to prison pipeline is going up. Why are there so many police officers in our schools? Like these kids, of course, kids are gonna fight. There's always, even white kids fight. But why you got all these sheriffs in our school? Of course, they're gonna arrest us. Instead of trying to fix the problem, you creating more problems. Police officers, they don't fix problems. They come after the problem has happened and make the problem worse. So we need to, instead of trying to beg these white people for something that they never gonna give us, we need to go to a place for Black people where we can make our own and not have to worry about what they gonna give us today. What you gonna build for yourself? That's what I think we need to do. But it's really hard to talk to Black people over here unless they are like going to school. But some of them, it's just like it's kind of like you keep repeating yourself and you keep getting the same results. But I feel like once people realize the wrongs that the Europeans have done to everybody in the diaspora, we'll come together. Because once we come together, we'll be a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, what you're saying about the military complex, yeah, because that is what it is. And when you look at it, and you look at especially prisons, slavery is still alive. That's what, you know, Dr. Campbell was saying. Slavery is still very much alive in America because of the 13th Amendment. The 13th Amendment says that once you have been incarcerated and once you become part of that prison complex, you then are able to be enslaved once again and work for free. And they're making billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars. You know, what if we all decided that, you know what, we ain't going to give them another tax penny? Can you imagine? What if we all decided that, you know what, we don't want our future generations to be born here? What if we all decided that we need healing, serious healing, from the damage that has been caused to us? What if we realize who the real enemy is? White people don't like us. I don't care what anyone says. Yeah. Some people say, oh, you know, I've got some friends or whatever. Let me tell you something from my own personal experience. They don't really like us. Yeah. They do not really like us. And I can tell you why. Every time, like, you're on an even kill with a white person, they can be your friend. But the minute you go above in terms of a position or a better car or a better house, or you start to elevate yourself, or you're mixing with different circles, you find that the friendship tends to, if it was a friendship in the first place, because you have to question that, because usually people are there for their own benefit and their own self-interest, it tends to change. I don't know if anybody else has had that experience, but, you know, and the thing is that I also experienced, you know, especially whilst in the UK, I don't know so much about America, but definitely in England, I noticed that there was a campaign to stop the Black family. And what I mean that, like, white women were intentionally set to go and to copulate and to have relationships with Black men, intentionally, to stop them from having relationships with Black women and to stop them from having Black families. I don't know if that is something, it's part of your, you know, eugenics campaign. I don't think people realize how subtle eugenics can be. It's not just like in your face, we want to annihilate you and make you all have abortions and kill your children. It's also about trying to break down that race. Now, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, I don't know if you're familiar with her because you're quite young and she was like my generation, but she wrote a book called The ISIS Papers, Keys to the Colors. And I'm not sure if you're aware of Neely Fuller. I'm not sure if you're aware of Dr. Ben and some other scholars, brilliant scholars from the US who, you know, I was fortunate to read. Dr. Joy DeGroy as well, also wrote about post-traumatic slave syndrome. And I think it's current traumatic syndrome that we suffer. But nonetheless, right, I found that part of their eugenics has to be that. And also, it's also downplaying the role of the Black man so that the Black female now feels she has no option, especially if it's on a financial basis, then to go outside of her race, which is another part of the eugenics. Because the eugenics is to just ensure that we do not, that they're afraid of genetic annihilation. And so part of their fear of genetic annihilation, we cannot become a superpower if, you know, we do not realize that there is they have a genetic recessive gene. And this has been proven. I'm not just talking, this is scientific facts. And so unless we realize our genetic superiority, we're not going to realize who we really are. And I think that's part of becoming a superpower, is to realize that you're super. Once we realize that we're super and that we have a super continent that we can come to, a super home that we can live in, a superb environment that is fertile, that you can grow anything in, that has every mineral known to man, then we can realize that, you know, we are the feeding bowl for the world, and it's time for us to start feeding ourselves. Wow, someone just said about the keys to the colors. I want the Glorious was going for 1,000 on Amazon, and I want that book. Well, you're very lucky. I have 2 copies. I have 2 copies, but you can also get it on. Amazon. It's in my storeroom, actually, in a box. But you can get it, and it's a great book. And she did do the first one about race and racism as well. So, you know, I know that you're probably young and you might not have read all those kind of Pan-Africanist books yet, but do try and read like Chancellor Wilson. Oh gosh, his name. Where's my book? Anyway, it's called A Decolonization of Africa. Read these books because they really give you a foundation about what has really happened on the continent and why. And it also talks about migrations. It also talks about, you know, the great wars that have happened and what we have done, because they don't talk about our victories. They never talk about our history. And to become a superpower, you've got to understand the strength of your ancestors, because you stand on their shoulders. You know, painting about your ancestors and changing the narrative by repainting Africa. That is the job of you young scholars, you young artists, is to repaint the narrative.
And that's exactly what I'm going to do. Paint narrative and show positive Black representation in the world. So 100 years from now, instead of them going to Paris to look at fine art, they're going to come to Africa and the thing that we've created.
Okay, you know, like they said, someone just said that, you know, that we hate each other, and you got to understand that. That's why I was talking about post-traumatic slave syndrome. Yeah, and Dr. Joy DeGrow, I'm gonna edit together some really important clips of some of our sisters and our brothers showing, you know, the psychological damage and how we need to really analyze ourselves. Because the reason why we have self-hate, and I think Malcolm X said it the best, actually. Malcolm X, you know, explained why we have self-hate is because we were taught, and it was, you know, something that was so entrenched. What do you think, Seth?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Definitely, we suffer from intergenerational trauma.
Intergenerational trauma, that's exactly it. You know? And this intergenerational trauma has been passed down. It has never gone away, you know. And I think that there we go. Thank you. It is Chancellor Williams. I was right. Okay, I had a little self-doubt there. So it was Introduction to Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams. And when I read that book, it made me understand the migrations across Africa as well. And it told me about the wars, you know, from the Berbers across to the Boers, across to all of the wars we fought, the Kush Wars, you know, and the great history that we have. And the fact that we stand in, it's not just Shaka Zulu, there are many other warriors. And, you know, one of my personal heroines is a lady called Kim Pavita. And Kim Pavita is amazing, totally amazing. What she achieved in her years is phenomenal. And I would like everybody, and I will hopefully one day share her story on this channel. But Kim Pavita and what they actually did to her because of what she did. And she was one of the first abolitionists for slavery in the Congo. And we're talking about 1733 onwards. So You know, we have to really look into our history and realize that we have a lot of things to be proud of. And I also think that once we embrace ourselves as Africans, you are an African born in America. You are an African. You belong to a huge and beautiful continent that far supersedes America, far supersedes Canada, okay? Far supersedes many of the other so-called countries in terms of size and also population. And when you realize that you actually already belong to a superpower, once we can acknowledge that we are super beings, once we can acknowledge that, yeah, we are powered through the sun. Yeah, once we can acknowledge that, yes, 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 my DNA ain't inferior. Once we can acknowledge that, we are the best at tennis. We are the best at sports. We are the best at inventing. In fact, it was some 3 black women that sent that rocket to the moon. Once we realize that, yeah, we invented nearly everything on the face of the planet, from the computer to GPS to open heart surgery to laser. You know, what is it we haven't created, down to the chair you see now? Africa first. We got to, you know, have African solidarity. Right. Africa prioritize, and we got to prioritize. We got to buy black and buy black only. We got to see black and see black only. People telling me about how they're colorblind and they can see. Telling me they're colorblind, I don't see color. Since when did we have this privilege? When have we ever had this privilege? You don't see color until someone in your family is affected by racism. Since when did we stop marrying a reflection of ourselves, of our parents? Since when did we put other races in front of our own? And since when has it ever benefited us to do that? Since when? When these people with money, they die and they married outside their race, that money goes directly outside their race. There is no intergenerational wealth.
That's done by design.
Of course it's done by design. Of course it's done by design. They got us brainwashed. I don't care what anyone says. You can criticize me in the comments, but I don't care what anyone says. I was brainwashed. I was brainwashed. Yeah, I was brainwashed.
I was too. I really was.
You know, they had us so we didn't even want to wear
our really bad.
I think you froze for a minute there, sis.
Yeah, the videos are lagging really badly.
I was saying that I think we froze you there for a little bit. I don't know what happened there, but I was saying that, you know, we so convinced that we don't even like ourselves. We even hide our own hair. You know, we hide our own hair. Can you imagine? We hide our own beautiful that afro hair. We hide it, and we put something that would look more European, as if to say we need to seek their approval for how we're supposed to look. We want to bleach the color out of our skin, and I see it. I ain't gonna lie and pretend it ain't happening. I've never been to a country where I ain't seen it. I've seen it in all countries, including Asians doing it too. It ain't just Africans. Because why? Because we've allowed them to show their beauty as a superior form of beauty over ourselves. And, you know, it's something that we have to unpack. And that's why I give credit to like Culture UK, if you can go on there, CURLTURE, because they've been really promoting about us embracing our natural beauty, our natural hair, buying black, shopping black, being proud of being black. We need to remember we don't need plastic on our fingers to look beautiful. We don't need plastic on our eyes to look beautiful. You know, we are the progenitors of makeup from our ancestors in Kush. Go back to your ancestors, you'll see they were the first people with eyeliner. So don't be proud. You know when you're wearing your eyeliner, we know it comes from here. It comes from your great, 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 great ancestors. Then women knew how to do their hair. They had it going on. And yeah, they were entirely black. I went to the place they call Egypt now, and I saw it with my own eyes. I went to the tombs and the catacombs. I went all over, and I went all the way down the Nile. I went to Aswan. You know, I went to all the temples. When you see it, and you see it there, and they sitting there trying to lighten it. Don't think that they ain't trying to take all the black out. They ain't trying to burn all the temples to pretend it ain't you. But listen, let me tell you something. It's you. That's why they cut off the noses off the statues, because they don't want to see your big black broad nose and your big black broad lips, because it's you. They are a representation of you and your greatness. And they've taken that away from us. They whipped all kinds of craziness into us. They did the most evil, most heinous things to us to make us hate ourselves. But it's time to embrace and re-love ourselves. You know, I'm not criticizing people for what they wear on their hair, because we all go through phases and stages until we find ourselves. We all go through stages, because what we're trying to do, us women are trying to attract the opposite sex. We're trying to, you know, attract our men. And a lot of our men ain't even looking at us. They talking about, what's his name the other day, talk about exotic women or whatever his face is. Yeah, I can't even remember his name, some artist. You know, what's he talking about exotic when you're going out with plastic? What is plastic exotic now? Is fake exotic now? We are the original people of this earth. We are the original gatekeepers. We are the original carekeepers of this earth. And we are the original people of this earth. Oh, was that him? I just see Audrey put it up. I don't want to give him no promotion, yeah? But let's just say it's $50. You understand? We have to love ourselves for who we are. Why should we change? Why should we change to suit other people? You know, becoming a superpower. If we can change our mindset, we can change our lives. If we can change our mindset, we can change our lives. If we learn that we can actually trust each other, because we have trust issues as Black people, let's face it. And that's one of the blocks to us becoming a superpower. It's because we have trust issues. We don't even trust our own family members, let's face it. Yeah? And some of our own family members, they lay in with what we call the enemy. And this is happening in our families, where even in your own family, you feel compromised because you can't even speak the truth at a family dinner, because across the road is the Mzungu, the Tubab sitting at the family table. You can't even talk it. And you have to pretend like you're happy with it, even when you ain't. So when we're even compromised in our own family internal structure, because that's what happens. And I find once these brothers, they marry the sisters outside their race, all of a sudden, you know, the breakdown in relationship is there to continue, because they'll do anything to support and to protect their partner outside of the race. And 9 times out of 10, there's no benefit. There's no benefit. These brothers aren't really getting any benefit from it. And this is where the problem is. There's no benefit to it, because it ain't benefiting your race. How can it benefit your race when inside you, you're a reflection of your perfect partner, don't even look like you, don't even look like your mom, don't look like your dad. And yeah, you know, none of our parents are perfect. They had to go through their own struggles. So we shouldn't be there judging on our parents. They got their own problems, but they still brought us here. They still brought us here. So, you know, there are so many of us trying to fight to pretend to be white. Like, oh, I got a great-grandmother who was white, so that means I'm mixed. Why are you proud to be Black? Why are you proud to be an African? Why are you forgetting the other? Yeah, okay, I know. Why I have to go to this meeting soon, okay? So I have to cut short. But why ain't we just proud of the other 9/10 Black? Why we have to go all the way back through history to try and justify, oh, I got 1% white, 1% white, 5% European, my great-grandparents was white. Why are you saying your great-grandparent were probably related to those slave owners that enslaved your ancestors? And why are you talking about the fact that the only reason why your great-great-grandparent went for someone that was white was because they thought that they were going to get a better situation out of life? Because they thought by going the white way was the right way, but it ain't, because now we learned 500 years ago the white way is the wrong way. Why? Because how have we succeeded? How has it made us succeed? No, all we've done is build up their economy, build up their countries. It's not our house. That's not our house. Well, I hear, man, you know, I heard some Africans and Americans say, you know, oh, we built this. And I heard people in the UK say, oh, my ancestors built this, but it ain't your house. Because you slaved by force, without payment, for hundreds of years to build another man's house. Does it make it your house? Sister, does it make it your house?
Nope. Because we over here still eating the same food that they used to feed slaves, but we don't see no problem. We over here wondering why we overweight. We got all these diabetes and high blood pressure. Then you go and you try to live healthier in America, and it's like it costs so much just to get fruits and vegetables, but it costs simply go to McDonald's for $1 and you can eat and feed your whole family there. But we really need to just like figure out, like, this ain't it. Let's go somewhere we can find food that we know is healthy. It ain't got all this, it ain't genetically modified, ain't got all this process messed through it and chemicals, and we probably be living better. Because I know I'm struggling with weight myself, and like, so if I can get to a place where it's easier for me to live better and eat better, we ain't have to worry about all of this weight problem. We ain't got to worry about, oh, my stomach look like that. You're not supposed to be eating this food. Your body, your DNA ain't meant for this European food and they way of eating. And they don't even eat half of the junk we eat. You know what I mean? This is the scraps. They still leaving us scraps. It's just in a pretty package with color on it.
People saying you got a job. You have to paint Africa to the world. You got a job now, sis. Yeah. You got to start a channel.
Yeah. Oh, you don't see me
to the world, okay? You have to use your art and your channel and teach people to paint so we can paint Africa to the world.
I'll show you some of my art.
Yeah, I would love to interview Grandmaster Jay. Wow. I mean, any interviews you'd like me to do, send me the link. Okay, everybody, just send me the link. You know, I advertise my number on WhatsApp, and I do apologize for the last few weeks. I've been a little bit lax because I was unwell. So if your messages and your emails aren't getting answered, I do apologize. I'm sincerely sorry about that. And if you're a donor and you haven't had a thank you letter from me, that's also why. So don't think that I don't appreciate it. You know, I'm appreciating it. But I just want to say that we do need to readdress how we feel about ourselves. We need to stop wanting to look European. We have to acknowledge our African-centered beauty and see the beauty in of ourselves. Primarily, we got to realize that, you know, if you can't get a man that wants you and you can't get a woman that wants you, that is a reflection of you, then come home. Yeah, come home. Yeah, you don't have to be, you know, looking for scraps, because there'll be a beautiful African brother that would love to marry you, Queen. You understand? Yeah, there's a beautiful African woman right here to marry my brother, and he's shy. So what I'm trying to say is that, you know, this morning, I'll give you an example. What did I eat for breakfast? I had pawpaw, I had mango, I had what you might call sugar apple. We call it custard apple. I had some grapes. I had some orange. And what else? I had something else. What else? I had pawpaw, grapes, custard apple. But what I'm trying to say is that I eat a healthier diet here, which has enabled me to lose a lot of weight. I can get, you know, my fruit off the tree. Last night I wanted a snack, so I had some fried plantain. Yeah, I'm trying to cut down the fried food, but I can't resist the planting here. It's too nice. Honestly, fam. If you like planting, Africa is the place, yeah? But the food is beautiful. It's second to none, and you just can't resist it. I mean, it's so fresh. You know, right now, my chickens were running outside in my garden. I'm not joking. My chickens were running outside in my garden, and then they're prepared for dinner. You understand? That's how fresh it gets. So you don't have to worry about having these, you know, chickens pumped with all kinds of chemicals and, you know, not fed good natural feed. You can eat good natural food here. I got my yam there. I got my green banana there. You understand? I got my cassava. I got my pumpkin. I got my squash. I got all my greens, you know, all kinds of greens, plus all kinds of salads. And yeah, just living. And I mean, you know, and the rice here is off the hook. My goodness, the rice here, the natural Gambian rice is better than any rice. And I like Sierra Leonean rice too, but Gambian rice is the best. Not the Benachin and the Baal and the foods and the porridges, the millet porridges and the peanut stews and the, oh, you know, we ain't living. We ain't living. We just ain't living. I'm not gonna lie to you. We just ain't living there. You know, I've been to America. And, you know, I'm not a big fan of America, and I can't say I've been to everywhere in America, so I don't want people to judge me. But I did go to New Jersey. I did go to New York and various areas around New York. I went to the Bronx and so on. I also went to Florida, and I went to Miami. I went all over in different places. And I must confess, I never felt comfortable there. I always felt on edge. I found the culture to be somewhat artificial. And I didn't like feel that my people...
No, oh, like in my, because I go to an art school and it's not a lot of Black people in art school, because like not a lot of the opportunity to dream to be an artist, because we have to think we have to get like a 9-to-5 job. But since I'm like one of the few Black painters, I kind of have always feel like I have to like lower my Blackness around these white professors and these white students, so they can actually like look at me as an intellect rather than just a Black person. And this kind of is very uncomfortable when I could just do art with people like me and understand my art.
You said something that hurt me. What do you mean look at you rather than just being a Black person, but as an intellect? What do you mean? What do you mean? We are the progenitors of art.
They copied our art.
People love to look at as these criminals. They love to think, because a lot of us don't like to read. A lot of us do that. And then, so we always have to be pushed. I always have to push harder and harder, so they don't see me as just like, oh, you, because if I slack rather than my white associate slack, they gonna look at me as, oh, this is just a Black kid doing what Black kids do. But if I go and act like them, then they gonna see me as, oh, she's smart. But no, if the way I'm talking to you, if I talk to my professors the same way, they kind of look at me crazy, because I have to use big words. I have to explain stuff very adequately, definitely in the art world, because they love to be very picky and prissy about stuff. So, and then learning about artists, we learn about white artists. So I'm talking about Black art and trying to find my Black voice. And it's just like, they always marginalize me. And it's crazy. That's what I'm talking about. I don't mean being Black as a negative way. It's just like, that's how these white professors see Black.
That's why we need our own colleges, our own universities, our own institutions here, and we need to invest here in Africa. I think that's just the bottom line. In order to be a superpower, we need to put super money here. We need to come and, you know, take artists like you to come and establish establishments like this here. We need to be celebrating our own art. We need to be celebrating our African skills. We need to be bathing in the glory of our Africanness every single day. There's not a day that you should feel that you should be marginalized and have to speak in a certain way to these oops. to these people. I nearly got angry then. Right? You know, there is no way.
That's like
you have to compromise
art.
Spirit.
Sure they know my life.
That's what I had to do in England. I had to fake it. And I you know, one of the things that I said in Wodamaya, and I you know, I always give Wodamaya credit in everything that I do. One of the things that I said in Wodamaya when I was on Wodamaya's program is the fact that I don't have to pretend anymore. You know, I think it was Kamar, I've forgotten his name now. And he talked about double consciousness, you know. If you remember his name, come back at me, American brother. Yeah, and he talks about double consciousness and not having to have it, because in England it was exactly the same. You know, I'm going to work, and you know, often enough you change the way in which you speak just so that they couldn't pretend that they didn't understand what you were saying. And another thing that you had to do was to also mimic them in order to ensure that they wouldn't think that you were uneducated. And this is one of the problems. I've just shown you an example. That's what I would do when I go into work. And so it becomes second nature, because when I was at home, you know, or when I was with my grandma, or when I was with my family, it's a completely different Juliet come out, because I Jamaican come out of my mouth, because I that them speak and that how them live. You understand? So me can't talk how me want, talk and be how me want be, and nobody can tell me nothing at all. I mean, not care if you want to say nothing, me I got talking. You understand? So you start to have a split personality. You have the one which you're trained to do, and then when you go home, your grandma doesn't understand you when you speak like this, because your grandma is from Jamaica. Yeah, you know, come on, sis. I'm gonna post it. Listen, I have to go in a minute, but if you want to quickly jump in the conversation, go ahead. I'm posting it in the chat. Yeah, also gonna put it in private chat so you can get the post. Okay, so I'm just posting now. So if you got 10 minutes to jump in, because I have to go. I have to get ready. And guess what? The ancestors are answering, because all of a sudden it's like boom, boom, boom. We're getting thunder here. They hearing us. Yeah, they hearing us. The ancestors ain't playing. Yeah, they're telling you all to come home. Yeah, why not live a better life? At the end of the day, if you're living in a project, you can get some money from somewhere. The same money we're using to study, the same money that we're using to live, we can save some money. Because remember, the cost of living here is much cheaper than what it is in America. Yeah, your African brothers and sisters, you know, we have to come and create jobs. This is not a time for us to come and say, right, we want a job, and we're gonna go into the newspaper and apply for a job. Right? Leave those jobs to the locals. Let's come and let's create employment. Let's create projects. Let's create irrigation for the rice. You know, let's start bringing some you know, ackee and here some ackee trees, and let's start sharing some, you know, different plants and different greens, and you know, let's start, you know, working on agriculture. Let's start developing. Let's start, you know, growing stuff we can export, and let's start growing stuff so we have food security. Yeah. Hey, Bijunua. Gina, world one.
Hey guys, blessed. How you guys doing today? You know, I'm about to speak some Creole to you. You know, I don't do that patois too well. But me in the house. Hey sis, I just wanted to get in there and tell you, no, look. I was sitting back, and I'm gonna tell you something. To be honest with you, it's a scary thing. The thought of leaving America, the thought of leaving all of this is a scary thing, because it's all we know. But it's like being in an abusive relationship. You know, it's like being with a man that's been beating you up, and you want to leave, and you know you don't have no other options but to leave, but you're scared. I'm telling you, we have to make that leap. And some of us, we're gonna have to leave away. We're gonna have to leave behind some family. We're going to have to leave behind some friends. We're going to have to leave behind some things, but we ain't got no choice. I know that Africa is where we all are supposed to be. If you get the call, I was talking to TT. Hey, TT, look, you put her comment up. I was talking to TT last night, and she said something. She said that we got the call. Some of us got the call. Don't look around. And, you know, for everybody else to be talking about what you're talking about, everybody else is supposed to be awakened right now. We got the call. If you got the call, do whatever you need to do to get home. Do whatever you need to do to get home. And that's everybody. Because guess what? We're going to be the ones fishing, helping our sisters and brothers get out the next call. We got the first call. Juliet got the call before me. And, you know, there are brothers and sisters on the continent now. And some of us, we're getting the call now and we're buying our land. We're preparing to get out of here. If you got the call, don't be afraid. Take the leap. We have to leave this abusive relationship. It's not going to stop. They're going to keep killing us. They're going to keep disrespecting us. They profit. They profit from all of this. And the only way, like Juliet say it, how do we get away from this? The only way to do it is what? Separate.
The only way to eradicate racism is to leave it behind and come live with your own kind.
That's it.
I miss the song, I mean it.
I love when she said that. I love when she said the only way to, you know, to not have to deal with racism is to leave it behind.
Yeah.
Now, there's another thing that we need to, you know, and I'm happy that Juliet and her husband are already working on this task. I want full citizenship when I get to Africa. The only reparation I want from Africa is my birthright, my citizenship.
When you Blaxit, yeah, when you Blaxit, yeah, you leave it all behind. And I want to unpack Blaxit because someone asked me about it in the comments. So Blaxit came about through Brexit. Let me explain something. Around 2014, 2015, 2016, Brexit was shaping in the UK. And while Brexit was shaping, also was shaping was some serious racism. We started facing racism in the UK on the same level that we did in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. It was a resurgence of that racism because part of leaving Europe, which is where Blaxit where we comes from, comes from that era, that time where they were shaping to leave Europe. And so we said, well, they leave in Europe, we leave in Europe too. They Brexit, we Brexit. Yeah. And so that's where the Blaxit came from. And that's why if you look at all of the clips of me in the media and you look at, you know, when we were talking about reparations, it was always interlinked with Blaxit. So Blaxit is the migration of us from the West to the best, which is Africa. So that is what Blaxit is. That is what the context of it is. That is what it means. It is that mass exodus. And the reason why on the channel it's a BL with a space with an XIT is so that you have room to leave, room to go.
Oh, I like that.
That's why we do ours differently, because we realize there needs to be a gap there. For the return home. So, Gina, where are you, girl? Oh, hang on. It looks like we're having a few issues. I think because we're having a storm here, it could be affecting the internet. Yeah. So,
you're coming through
electricity in the air. Ooh. Someone said they watched a white girl do a video. I'm not really interested in what they got to say. To be honest with you, the narrative, the white narrative is not my interest. Blaxit is all about us. And so I'm focusing on us. Yeah, there you'll find detractors. You'll find detractors. We ain't got time for that. No more time. They ain't even in our vision. What are you saying, Seth?
Of course there's no time, because they're not.
It looks like they're frozen. It looks like everybody's frozen.
We started demanding reparations, taking reparations. You know, a American lady already told me how she took her reparations. I respect her 1,100%. You know, and I reckon more of us need to follow suit.
I'm working on it now, Juliet. I'm trying to see what I can get. Wink, wink.
Get everything.
I'm working on it. I will not be handed.
Don't do it. Don't do it. You know, they can say what they want about me. Yeah, I lay myself open and bare to target. Yeah. At the end of the day, I say to everybody, grab what you can grab and get out. Yeah. Take it all, because if you're waiting for them to give it to you, you're going to be waiting your whole lifetime. Yeah. Take everything that you can get. Take it. It's yours, and take it.
And don't feel
in
bad
England, we
because
were paying tax.
this is how their system is set up. This is what they do. Like Dr. Sizemore, she was an educator in the United States. She said they are always in competition. And we need to understand there's 3 basic rules. Win if you can, lose if you must, but always cheat. That is their rule. Period.
Say it again. So
the 3 rules.
This is
that the other nations live by. Okay,
say it again.
Look her up. She was an intelligent, oh my God, beautiful sister. She said there are 3 rules that these other nations work by that we need to work by. Win if you can, lose if you must, but always cheat. Do it.
You have it.
We've been listen fair too long. There's no need to play fair with a bunch of people that don't know what fair is. They don't care.
Well, the truth of the matter is this. I want to say hello to William Moore. Yeah, a special big up. I've been meaning to get back in contact with you this week. It's just been a bit hectic, actually. So I want to big up William Moore. I'm just going to put your comment on the screen. Yeah. They are still quarantining in Gambia because some flights came in. And unfortunately, those people, those Wazungus, those Tubabs, decided to bring the COVID-19 with them. So they're still quarantining. Well, you know what? Nothing is beyond expectation of them. Yeah. In fact, I watched a video. I'm going to share it. Someone sent a video talking about it, and I think it was the president of Ghana. I don't know if you've seen it. I think it's gone viral now. There's 2 really big videos that have gone viral. One is with Osman Toure, the interview that I did with him earlier on in the year. I saw that. Yeah, he was on GRTS this morning, Coffee With. He was on GRTS on Breakfast TV here, and he's doing really well. I'm so proud of him. And I saw him yesterday as well. I bumped into him yesterday. But, we got so much to look forward to. We have promising young Africans worldwide. They're going to change the world as we know it.
Just feed them the truth. They will make their way if we give them the truth. Stop educating them with this white man's education. We need to give them the truth. Man, if I would have known everything that I know when I was his age, when I was younger, I don't know where I would have been right now. I know I would have been in Africa by now.
One of the lies, I've just got to say, because I've got to go soon, but one of the lies that they fed to us is that we enslaved ourselves. Yeah, and that we sold ourselves into slavery. It's a lie. It's a complete and total lie. And they did it to create resentment. And this lie was told by the Arabs, just like what they said in the documentary. This lie was told by whites. Hi, Age. Say hi to the Blaxit family. It's got dark, I think, because it's
about to come
put
down.
Light on, Age.
Yeah. But so that was definitely a lie. To be honest, I believed it for a very long time. For a very long time, it caused a lot of hurt and anger in me. Because, the idea, the thought that the place that you come from, the place that, reared your ancestors, that these people, that they sold you, it's like it made you feel abandoned. And I have a video about that. It was so, I promise you, it wasn't until the president of Ghana and a few other videos like Wadamai, your video, that I started realizing that Africa wasn't what they painted it to be. You know what I mean? And it's gonna take a lot of people to go through the process and understand that, our people fought long and hard. And I found some facts out about Senegambia that was amazing. They fought a fierce fight. They fought really hard, during that time. If you go to the home team, if you ever watched his videos, the home team, he has a whole clip or a whole video about in the Gambian region. And those brothers and sisters, they might be mild now, they might be a little you know, like they say still water runs deep, but they said they were one of the fiercest fights that, you know, that the Europeans had to deal with.
Yeah,
they fought hard. So it wasn't an easy, they weren't an easy target. They weren't the easiest target. And that's why they put them in that little island, separated them, like, you know, they would capture them, take them there, because the brothers there were so fierce that they just had to isolate them from themselves. That's how hard they
they did.
They
did that with the Jola, the Mandingas, you know.
So yeah, everybody go to the home.
The thing is that they don't want to talk about that.
They don't, because
go to home team, go to Bijou Noir.
Go to the home
team.
Go
to Bijou Noir. Advertise your channels.
Yes. Come to the channel, guys. Get connected so we can discuss. So we can I want to reach out to some sisters and brothers that are still here and see how we could network so we can, you know, work together, you know, and you know, in our efforts to get home, you know, because right now I'm afraid. I don't know what they're going to do, what they're not going to do. We maybe even have to start talking to some people about getting some ships or some boats, whatever we need to do, you know, maybe get to Cuba first, figure out how to get out of there, because we don't know what's going to happen from day to day.
No, it's a very worrying situation. I mean, I was told that all flights are opening up next month, but it seems like on a month-to-month basis, we seem to be having different information being given to us about what's going to be happening, and so it's weird because someone was supposed to come next week to the Gambia, and they said to me that they would have to spend 24 hours in Brussels. They don't want to spend 24 hours in Brussels. And in light of what happened on Brussels Airlines, by the way, and I want to give kudos.
I saw that YouTube video of yours. I was like, oh my God, these people are getting a little, it's like they're coming out of their skin at us to attack you while you're in air. I mean, to be attacked while you're in air. This is crazy. The hate is real, y'all. The hate is real.
The is real. The thing is that, you know, I think because a lot of, you know, our brothers and sisters are laying down, you know, with other races, they feel that, you know, that the threat isn't there because they're only looking at an individual. They're not looking at the collective. And that is where the danger is. Yeah, because, you know, Muhammad Ali, he made a great analogy, you know, and he said, if 1,000 snakes are coming down the road at you, you know, and one of them's not poisonous, how you know which one's not poisonous? You know, you just close your door on all of them.
Exactly. You're gonna stick around and try to figure out, okay, are you a good snake? It's not our business if they're good or not good. They're with the team, and like I always say, it's a team sport. Regardless if they're good or not good, they still with their team. They're not going the other direction.
I have to go. Yeah, answer it for me, please. Thank you. No, lovely Adrian, my gorgeous one. He's just taking some calls. I have to go because I have to go to this meeting, and I have to change because it's raining outside, so a little summer dress ain't gonna kick it today. But I want to thank you all for your contributions. I want to thank everybody for their contributions today. It wasn't a planned stream today, actually, but I really miss you all. I miss you all so much. And so I just wanted you to know that I'm better. I'm feeling yeah, I'm happy that I lost the weight as well, because, you know, I've been going through mango mania. I mean, literally eating mangoes 24/7.
You look like you've lost the weight. I'm jealous. I cannot wait to get down there. All right, guys. Well, see you guys later and be safe.
It's raining. Beautiful. So, Seth, thank you so much for hosting and for restreaming. I want to thank Dr. Kambon and Abibi Tumi TV. So Dr. Kambon and Abumi Tumi TV. I want to apologize for not being on the stream yesterday, but we had some serious emergency that we had to deal with. So I had to quickly rush to the dentist. So I want to apologize for that. But I just want to thank Dr. Kambon, and I would like everybody to join his platform. Yeah, and that's Abibi Tumi TV. And you'll see the link. I'm going to share the link with you so everyone can join. I'm going to put it on the community page, and I'm going to try and keep posting it every day. So I did advertise the documentary. I enjoyed the documentary. I think it hits some really key points. And these are things that we as Africans have to really look at, because we are being targeted. It is I'm sorry, but it is open season on us. It is open season on us. And we have to wake up, shake up, and realize they don't like you. They just don't like you. Even if they're laying in bed with you, they don't really like you, because inside, somewhere intrinsic in them is a deep-seated hatred that unfortunately, you know, has not been unpacked. It has not been dealt with. And after 100, 200, 300, 400 years, if nothing has changed, I think you need to realize that it's not going to. The only way to eradicate racism is to leave it behind and go live with your own kind. So I want to thank everybody that has, you know, joined the stream today. Thank you. It wasn't planned, so it wasn't advertised in its usual way. But the fact is that you were still able to join. And I want you to also follow Bijou Noir and also Home Team as well, because they give great content, and donate to them if you can as well. If you'd like to support Blaxit, you can too. We'd appreciate, you know, any contributions that you make to the channel. And you can do that via PayPal. Our email address, I'm just going to put it here. PayPal is at Bop Collective. Oh, and if you want to know what Bop Collective is, it was an organization that started in 1994. It's an underground grassroots organization that we had in order to tackle racism in the UK, because we had to be our own power. And it was also Black Operation Positive. And so we did many huge ventures there in order, you know, to combat racism. And we achieved a lot as well. We achieved a lot. We got the N-word taken out of the dictionary. We also won multiple awards. We also put out music to change the narrative about how we perceived ourselves in a negative light. So we went on the positive rap about, you know, what it is to be Black and to be proud, and to be African and be proud. So we put out CDs, we put out loads of stuff. So I just wanted to give you a bit of background about where Bop Collective came from. And so we keep it alive still today. So that's where Bop Collective came from. So that's PayPal if you'd like to donate. And if you'd like to donate via Patreon, you can via Blaxit, BLA_XIT. So without further ado, I have to run to the meeting and I have to get changed. So I just like to say thank you all for your contributions. I'd like to say thank you to my African family globally, because we are all Africans. And once we embrace being Africans, then we can become a superpower, because we realize that we'll have a base. And a superpower has to have a base. And that base is our beautiful continent of Black Africa. So, Seth, you any last words before we go? Thanks for leading on this, bro. Come on.
You're welcome. Thanks for sharing Thanks for sharing with us, and thanks for joining us on this live stream. And to the artists, can you please send us some of your work?
Yeah, so we can share it.
So we can share it.
So Winter Bell, share us your work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blaxit Home
at gmail.com.
gmail.com.
So yeah, type that. Oh, they said they love you, Seth.
I love you too.
He's just typing the email address very slowly. That's not it. Where is it? Good man. That's how we do. So yeah, thank you, Seth, for reading on this today and restreaming, because we had some issues with sound last night, so we restreamed. So please, everybody, subscribe to Abibi Tumi and follow Dr. Cambon. He's doing lots of great work, and we really admire his work and what he's doing over there in Ghana. He also Blaxit. So lots of us have Blaxit to Africa. We're living a great life. We're enjoying our life, and we just want you to come home too. You know, just come home. Blaxit, please, Blaxit. The only way to eradicate racism is to leave it behind and come live with your own kind, and you have a much better life here. So please, please don't worry about the ifs, the buts, and the maybes. Just start making a plan, and the ancestors will stand back and they will open the way.
Yeah.
Okay? We love you all.
Oh, gee, what's it?
Oh.